Amber Rose spoke at the Republican National Convention, and Harmeet Dillon said a Sikh prayer at the RNC on stage in front of everybody. What was the mayhem that happened at the RNC, and why is everybody talking about all the things that took place on stage? We're going to cover that briefly in the beginning. I know I'm a little bit late to talking about it because it's been talked about quite a bit in the last week or two. But then after that, we're going to talk about how life changes after marriage. This is a topic that some people have requested. It also seems to be pretty high on people's searches. A lot of search engines are saying that this is a pretty popular phrase that's being searched online. So that's what we're going to discuss after we get into the RNC drama. Lots have happened politically over the last couple of weeks. If you're new here, welcome to The Shift with Gina. This is a show where we talk about women's issues, especially relating to building healthy, whole women for stronger families and a thriving society. And every now and then we got to talk about what's happening politically. I don't follow politics that much. I'm more interested in the cultural side, what's happening culturally in our society. But sometimes you got to talk about what's happening politically because things go crazy. There was the attempted assassination of President Trump. And then right after that, everyone was talking about Amber Rose speaking at the RNC. And of course, the responses to Trump, people were claiming, all these celebrities claiming that it was a fake shooting, which, by the way, didn't Alex Jones have to pay $1 billion for claiming that Sandy Hook was a fake shooting? And now you have celebrities like Amanda Seales and then political pundits like Joy Reid, is that her name? The girl on MSNBC. They came out and declared that that shooting was fake. So anyway, so much has happened in the political space over the last couple of weeks. So the Amber Rose was a very viral moment. She spoke on the first day at the RNC. And everyone was arguing about whether she should be speaking there. I would say most people on the right said that it was a good thing that she spoke there and we should welcome her with open arms. And I'll pull up a little clip of her speech because I also want to talk about first Matt Walsh's take on Amber Rose's speech at the RNC, because that's really where all of this spiraled from. He gave his thoughts. And if you've known Matt Walsh for a minute, you know that he doesn't hold back and he often has a very brash way of saying things. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He's very much, this is what I think. I don't care if it offends you. And this is what he said. He said, the RNC gives a primetime speaking slot to a pro-abortion feminist and self-proclaimed slut with a face tattoo whose only claim to fame is having sex with rappers. Truly an embarrassment. Not a single voter will be mobilized by this person. Let's listen to just like a minute or two of her speech really quick, and then we can discuss a little bit more.
My entire family is racially diverse, and I believe the left-wing propaganda that Donald Trump was a racist. My father said, "No, he's not, Amber. What are you talking about?" And when I insisted, he said, "Prove it." So to prove my father wrong, I did my research and looked into all things Donald Trump. People have to do their research. I watched all the rallies, and I started meeting so many of you, his red hat wearing supporters. I realized Donald Trump and his supporters don't care if you're black, white, gay, or straight. It's all love.
Yeah, and then she goes on and says a lot of things about how the media lies to us about Trump, and says a lot of things in that speech that I don't think any of us would disagree with. But the way that Matt tweeted about this has everybody up in arms. Amala Ekpanobi, she used to be a PragerU personality. She says, may as well never attempt to change someone's mind if this is how you will treat them when they do. As a former leftist myself, this is such an L take. That got 23,000 likes. I mean, everyone is arguing with Matt Walsh over this. And then later, Matt Walsh says, he follows up and he says, you guys can get mad at me for saying it, but the first day of the convention was totally absurd and a very bad omen of things to come. Trump has never had more momentum or goodwill, and the RNC decided to use that to push a message of diversity and inclusivity rather than using it to advance anything resembling a conservative agenda. I call it as I see it, and that's what I saw. I can't speak to what else happened at the RNC on the first day. I didn't watch much else of it. I just watched the viral moments of Amber Rose's speech and then Harmeet Dillon's prayer, which we're going to get into in a minute. But I'll say this about the Amber Rose thing. I can tell you from my initial reaction, I think it's amazing that Amber Rose is willing to admit that she was wrong about Trump. I think we can start there. And I think it's incredible that she has the guts to say publicly that she's MAGA. Regardless of what we think about Amber Rose, we can absolutely say that in Hollywood, it is like social suicide, career suicide to come out and publicly support Trump. Less so now than it was in 2016, of course. I don't think any celebrities did it in 2016. But even so, it's still a big risk to do that. She's got 25 million followers on Instagram. And if you don't know who Amber Rose is, she is television personality, actress. They listed her at the RNC as an American model. And, I'll tell you some of the things that she rose to fame over. She is famous for dating Kanye West in the past. And after they broke up, she had a very viral exchange with Kanye on Twitter where she said some things about Ye that I can't repeat on this show, but you probably know what I'm talking about. She has a son with the rapper Wiz Khalifa. And one of the biggest things that she's famous for is she reclaimed the word slut, and she co-founded the Amber Rose Slut Walk, which was this big event that embraces and rebrands the word slut and encourages women to embrace their sexual promiscuity and, I don't know, embrace it as something empowering and liberating. That's a very liberal thing. These are the things that she is most famous for. She currently has an OnlyFans account, and she's apparently very popular on there. And she just put a sale on her OF right after she spoke at the RNC. So these are all the things that Amber Rose is known for. She's known for her buzz cut hairstyles, her fashion sense. And she has publicly come out before and said that she's very pro-abortion. That's not a surprise. But the fact that she's come out as MAGA is really interesting. It's an interesting moment for the culture because now we're seeing more and more celebrities who don't care that they're going to upset people by saying they're pro-Trump. And I think we should welcome all of these people with open arms and say, that's awesome. Welcome to MAGA. Welcome to the conservative side. I'm so glad that you have seen the light and you understand now that the media was lying to you, because I myself, if any of you have been following me, I myself was a leftist too. I thought Trump was racist in 2015, 2016. I thought he was all the things the media says. And I think it's good that we're seeing more people come out in support of him and admit that they were duped by the media. However, this is a big however. This is not about rejecting Amber Rose from the Conservative Party or telling her that she can't be Republican or can't be MAGA, because of course she can. But guys, there is a really big difference between welcoming somebody into the movement and saying that we're so glad you're here. And there's a big difference between that and putting them on a main stage at the Republican National Convention, which is the annual convention to help elect the president, right? Sorry, not annual. It's held every 4 years to help elect the president, obviously. But there's a really big difference between welcoming Amber Rose into the conservative movement and then suddenly just pushing her on the stage at the RNC. There's a big difference between the two. And this is not about rejecting her outright, because everyone does deserve redemption. And so whenever Matt Walsh gave his thoughts, a lot of people in the comment section were like, we're all sinners. Everyone deserves redemption. How can you say she's not allowed in the movement just because of her past? That's so mean of you. That's not what Matt Walsh is saying, though. I know that it's hard sometimes to really get to what Matt is saying because some people get so offended by what he says, but that's not what I heard him say. I heard him say that, why are we putting her on the stage at the RNC? It doesn't mean we can't welcome her as a conservative. And there's always room for redemption and forgiveness for anyone who has whatever past, especially from a Christian perspective. Nobody is beyond redemption and forgiveness. Nobody. You, me, anybody else. We are all worthy. Well, we're not worthy. That's the wrong word. But we have forgiveness and redemption available to us, even though we are not worthy of it. That's a better way of saying it. However, again, that doesn't mean that we automatically push that person forward as a sort of like mouthpiece and representative for the Republican Party. And I think this is what a lot of people are struggling to understand. They think that just because we're not comfortable with a current corn star speaking at the RNC, that means that we don't think she should be a conservative at all. That's not what we're saying. This is why even a lot of people on the right, it's the same thing as people on the left. You guys hear what we don't say instead of hearing what we're saying. And it is relevant. It is relevant that Amber Rose is still on OnlyFans. And she pushed out a huge sale on her OnlyFans right after she went on stage at the RNC. And that is something that is worth mentioning. I think it is a very relevant detail. I'm not saying that she has to be a totally converted, perfect Christian to get on stage. Nobody's saying that, guys. Okay, let's not go from one extreme to the other. What we're saying is that out of all of the people that you choose to get on stage at the RNC, the really big convention that happens every 4 years to help elect a president, out of everyone, you're going to choose somebody who is currently a corn star. And this is not, we're not calling names. I'm not being mean. I'm not calling names. She's literally doing corn online currently. And I think that if we're going to really have a serious conversation about who we want to represent us, especially in election year, we have to acknowledge this. And I think this is more reflective of our broken culture and less reflective of Amber Rose herself. If we're talking about Amber Rose herself, I'm genuinely happy for her that she has understood the lies of the media. And I think for many people, that's the first step. Hopefully it's the first step into creating a different lifestyle for herself. You know, she seems like she's probably bright, even though people are like, oh, all the corn stars are idiots. Like, you know, she's built a pretty successful career for herself. I have full belief in her that she can turn her life around and stop doing corn. And I hope that she does. I think that she could be a really great example for all women who have done corn in the past or who are currently doing corn, that you can turn your life around. You're never past redemption. And I really hope for the best for her. But again, this is not reflective of her. It's more reflective of our broken culture that has so normalized sex work and normalized sex workers that the Republican National Convention is propping one up on stage on day one of the convention. I mean, the Republican Party should be working to outlaw corn entirely. That should actually be like one of the first social issues that it's tackling. And we're at a point now, instead of seriously talking about making legislation to illegalize corn, which should absolutely be a thing. It should not be legal. I can't believe we're even having this conversation. We've become so normalized, so used to seeing corn everywhere that people are like, oh, well, you know, people can make their own choices. You can't legislate morality. Oh, really? Is that why it's illegal to steal and to murder and to grape? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that why all of those things are illegal? Of course you can legislate morality. That's like partly what the law is for, is to legislate morality. The Republican Party should be working to outlaw corn. But instead, because our culture is so broken and so down the drain, we have normalized sex work and we've made it seem like it's totally fine. And so we're going to put up a corn star on the stage of the RNC. And for me, it was very pandering. Like, this is what kind of annoys me. And again, this is not about Amber Rose in particular. I'm not bashing her, saying that she can't be conservative. She is welcome to be MAGA, of course. However, we make fun of Democrats all the time. I always see the right bashing Democrats on the left for propping up these degenerate celebrities as their mouthpieces. Like, how many times have you seen all of these content creators, even like political pundits, they bash Democrats for making these celebrities their representatives. But as soon as one of these celebrities says something positive about Trump, Republicans glob onto them like there's some kind of hero. And hurry, put her on stage. Get her on the stage of the RNC. She's on our side. She said good things about Trump. Go. When you were just making fun of the Democrats for doing that like 5 minutes ago. So that's why it's like, It's pandering to me. You're just pandering. You're desperately trying to appeal to Gen Z, for example. Like, you're trying to let the young crowd know that we're hip, we're cool, we like corn stars, we're going to put them on stage. That's what it seems like to me. And I'm actually a little bit disappointed that very few people on the right can see that. They're just so enamored by the fact that the RNC, like, oh, they pick somebody who's culturally relevant to go on stage. That's awesome. Out of all the people to pick who's currently culturally relevant, do we have to pick someone who's currently a corn star? They think this is going to appeal to young voters. It might. I think it would actually appeal a lot more to young voters if Amber Rose were just to use her own platform of 25 million people, which is going to reach more young people than the RNC. I think it's a great thing for Amber Rose to talk about her own experience of how she transitioned from angry leftist who thought Trump was racist to someone who supports MAGA. I think that's great. But again, nuance, people. Two things can be true at once. That can be true. And it can also be true that I don't know if it's great to just suddenly like make her a mouthpiece for the RNC. That's just, those are my initial thoughts. And so in a way, I agree with what Matt Walsh is saying. People say he was too harsh and he was being mean. People were really stuck on the self-proclaimed slut line that he put in his tweet. But a lot of people thought that he was literally just calling her a slut, when what he's doing is he's just highlighting the fact that this woman is a self-proclaimed slut. Like, she embraced that word and she made a whole event called the Slut Walk. And that's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, and I'm like woman-splaining it to try to make it more palatable to people. But he's just trying to say that, hey, guys, this is somebody who currently does corn and who wants women to call themselves sluts. Like, is this really what we want on stage at the RNC? And I can understand posing that question because, and I fully embrace my prude mom, prude grandma moments. Like, as a mother, I'm a little uncomfortable with having a current corn star on the stage at the RNC, which is supposed to be the convention that helps elect a president. It's like that's a family affair. That's a family thing. When we're talking about electing a president, that of course is very strongly related to families and family matters. I, as a mom, don't want to see a current corn star on the stage at the RNC. I don't. And like, obviously my kids are far too young to be consuming any content that comes from the RNC. But like, if my kids were like 15 years old and they're interested in politics, and you can look at what's online, or you can watch what's at the RNC because it's about politics. That's like, age appropriate. And then there's like a current corn star on there. Come on, let's be a little serious here, guys. This has nothing to do with saying that Amber Rose is past redemption. No, it's got nothing to do with saying she can't be MAGA. And I'm seeing a lot of these like emotional responses, these straw man arguments claiming that Matt Walsh is saying she can't ever be forgiven and she can't be a conservative because she did so and so in the past. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that if we want to be taken seriously as the conservative party, like, of course, we want everyone to vote for us as much as possible. But when we're talking about the mouthpieces and the representatives of the party on a main stage at something as serious as the RNC, I don't think it's wise to just throw corn stars up there. That's my point. I can see the other side. Like, I was watching a little bit of Candace Owens and Michael Knowles talk about how they're 100% supportive of this because they think it's good for leftists to see Amber Rose changing her mind on politics. And I can see that side. I can. But I also, for me, I think it's extremely important for the Republican Party to maintain morals and to maintain values. And this leads us to the real debacle of the RNC. Like, I'm actually less concerned about Amber Rose speaking about the RNC and much more concerned about that prayer, the so-called prayer from Harmeet Dillon. She went up there and she did a Sikh prayer at the RNC. Like, out of all the prayers you're going to do, just to pander to the diversity crowd and to the people concerned with inclusivity, just to pander to them, you're going to let somebody go up there and pray a Sikh prayer. And this is where it's so frustrating. This is why so many conservatives hate the Republican Party, because these rhinos and these establishment Republicans pretend like we're not a Christian country. They pretend like were not founded on Christian values. I know that religious freedom, of course, is a right in America, but that doesn't mean that we were founded on no religious values. Like, you ever heard that phrase, politics is downstream from culture? Did you know that the next part of that is culture is downstream from religion? Like, that's how it goes. It's religion and then culture and then politics. That's how it goes. There is no such thing as morality that is not rooted in some kind of religious belief. So when people get online and they're like, don't bring your religion into politics, it's a very low IQ response because your morals come from your religion, regardless of what your religious beliefs are. You could be Christian, you could be Jewish, you could be Muslim, you could be Sikh, you could be agnostic or atheist. All of these are religious beliefs, and that's where your morals are derived from. So if we're talking about morality and we're talking about the law and legislation and policy, every country's policies come from some sort of religious beliefs, whether or not they want to admit it. Every country has some kind of religious roots, and that's where their morals and their values and their legislation comes from. The United States of America, we were founded on Christian beliefs. And yes, you're free to practice whatever religion you want, but our morals and our laws are derived from Christian values. And so the fact that they're just jonesing, they're dying to put a Sikh up there to say a Sikh prayer, that to me was the most upsetting part of the entire RNC. Like, what is going on? We're going to pretend like this is normal? We're going to pretend like this is okay? And I'll translate the prayer for you. First, let's take a look at what she was saying, and then we'll translate the prayer. Look at the girl's praying. She's like, oh, I'm going to pray because I'm so tolerant. I'm religiously tolerant.
Dear Waheguru, our one true God.
One true God.
Thank you for creating America as a unique haven on this earth where all people are free to worship according to their faith. We seek your blessings and guidance for our beloved country.
I can't. I'm done. Please. No, we don't seek your blessings. We don't seek that false God's blessings, that foreign God's blessings. No, we don't. And do you want to hear the translation of the thing that she sang or prayed or whatever? It's called Ardas, a prayer to God. You are our awe-inspiring, universal, forgiving teacher. To you we offer this prayer. This body and soul are yours. You are our mother and father, and we are your children. In your grace and through your benevolence, we experience peace and happiness. No one knows your infinite vastness, O highest of the high, most generous Lord/leader. The whole world's creation is joined together by your thread. That which come from you is in your will. You alone know your existence and vastness. Nanak, you humble follower, is forever surrendering to you. Through the blessings of our prophets, teachers, and spiritual guides, may your name forever be exalted, spreading happiness and positive spirit. And God, may everyone in the world prosper and be in peace with your grace. Now, people may hear this and be like, yeah, but that is what we believe as Christians. Yeah, no. Okay, Sikhism, they're a monotheistic religion founded in, I think, the late 14th or 15th century. So they believe that there's like a single formless God that's eternal and all-pervading. And the most important thing to really identify here is, as Christians, the core of our theology is the Trinity. We are Trinitarian. There is no God without the Son, Jesus Christ, and without the Holy Spirit. So, no, this God that the Sikhs believe in, this is not our God. This is not the Christian God. And the fact that we're totally fine with this prayer being performed at the RNC, which I believe she also did a Sikh prayer at the 2016 RNC, it's like, what's happening, guys? This is the most ridiculous thing that happened at the RNC, even more ridiculous than anyone speaking, including Amber Rose. She puts her head covering on, like, what are we doing here? Why are we pretending like we're not founded on Christian values? Of course, we support religious freedom. You can practice whatever religion you want, but that doesn't mean that we're going to pretend like we're not founded on Christian values. And that to me was like the biggest red flag of the RNC. And it just really points to Republicans just desperately trying to appeal to the diversity and inclusivity crowd. That was like their main purpose that day at the RNC. I didn't watch the rest of the days, but the Republican Party is just obsessed with diversity and inclusivity. And why? You know why? Because they want to pander to the liberals. They want to like get ahead of the libs and be like, hey guys, we are tolerant. See, we are tolerant and accepting. Is that more important to you than actually conserving something as conservative Christians? Ladies, did you know that if you have a menstrual cycle, you should be taking a prenatal multivitamin every day? Not only if you're trying to get pregnant or if you're pregnant or nursing. The prenatal multivitamin is great for women in their childbearing years, regardless of your pregnancy plan. So if you have a menstrual cycle, you should be taking a prenatal multivitamin every day. There are so many nutrients in here that are important for healthy hormones, a healthy menstrual cycle, a period that's much more manageable. It'll help reduce your menstrual cramps and PMS symptoms. And there's so many things in here that your body needs if you still have a menstrual cycle. And it's especially important to find a prenatal that has folate instead of folic acid. And it's actually kind of hard to find. There's so many prenatals out there that use folic acid, which is the synthetic form of folate that's not bioavailable to the body. So I highly recommend the First Form prenatal multivitamin. I've been taking this for 5 years, long before my first pregnancy. And it's a fantastic product. It gives you so much energy in the morning. It really helps to regulate your mood and your menstrual cycle. So I highly recommend it. Please use my affiliate link in the description in the show notes. Just click on that, make your first purchase. This company is also fantastic. They're very pro-America and patriotic, so it's a win-win. You know, you're supporting a company that has the same values as you, and they have excellent customer service. So if you need to make a return, it's 100% money, 110% money back guarantee. And let me know if you guys have any questions about the products. I mean, what is this? We're going to pretend like this is normal? And I know some responses are like, oh, but we're all Republicans are not Christian. This isn't the Christian party, it's the Republican Party. Okay, so are we all Sikh? Are we the Sikh party now? Are all Republicans Sikh? Is that what we're having, a Sikh prayer? I mean, at the very least, just don't have a prayer at all. But out of all of the religions they're going to choose from to have a prayer, it has to be Sikh. Why? Because it gives Republicans the diversity and inclusivity points, and they care more about that than anything else, really. And that's what's so frustrating. When I interviewed James Anderson White, he did that new documentary called, oh my gosh, I forgot what it's called, but it's about masculinity in America. No Man's Land. It's called No Man's Land. And we were agreeing how our politics are about the American family. It's the American family unit, whatever it takes to support and bolster the American Christian family, because that's really the bedrock of any of our society. A family is a bedrock of any thriving society, and whatever we can do to support families and help them grow and thrive. And this is why it's frustrating at the RNC to see such an obsession with diversity and inclusivity. You guys are more obsessed with diversity than you are actually serving American families. And I think that kind of says the same thing too about Amber Rose. You know, they're more concerned about including somebody on stage that's going to make us look hip and cool and current and young. They're more concerned with that than they are concerned with pushing family values. And this is why I was saying earlier, personally, as someone who's concerned mostly about family values and bolstering the American family, I would want the Republican Party to put family first. And if they are going to put family first, they're not going to put a current corn star on stage. And this kind of, you know, honestly, this reminds me a little bit of the Nala situation. I'm not talking about Harmeet anymore. I'm talking about Amber Rose. I'm sure you guys remember the OnlyFans model who made like $8 or $9 million on OF, and she got baptized last year and at the very end of last year, and then came forward a couple months later and was doing basically the circuit, interviews and a ton of stuff on TikTok and podcasts talking about her conversion experience. And some people were skeptical because it happened very quickly overnight. And there was some suspicion because in the early months of her touring, doing the media tour and talking about her conversion, she still had her OnlyFans up. And a lot of conservatives ended up like flocking to her and globbing onto her, this kind of same way that Republicans globbed onto Amber Rose right away. And I think that people on the right have this weird obsession with just immediately giving a huge platform to people who have conversion experiences. And again, like I said earlier, nobody is saying that you can't convert, whether it's to Christianity or whether it's to MAGA. Nobody's saying that you can't come to our side. But I don't know why the right is so weird about suddenly shining a humongous spotlight on these women who have major conversion experiences and suddenly making them like mouthpieces for the conservative movement or for the Christian conservative movement. Michael Knowles is somebody that I rarely disagree with. I've loved his content for a long time, but he did this big show with Nala, interviewed her for, I think, a couple of hours. And not once did he even mention, hey, Nala, there's a little bit of suspicion online about your conversion because you still have OnlyFans up. Is there anything that you want to say in response to that? He didn't even bring that up. And this is kind of the issue with me about conversion. People like to throw scripture in your face and they like to say things like, well, Jesus ate with sinners. Who are you to judge them? It's not about judging them or saying that they can't eat with us and mingle with us. It's really about if someone converts, that's great. But there really is a sort of period where there's repentance, there's humility, and it rubs me the wrong way. And intuitively, I don't think it's wise to just go from overnight OnlyFans to the very next day propping this person up as this incredible conversion story and mouthpiece for the conservative movement. And when people throw the Bible at us and they're like, well, Jesus ate with sinners and he talked to prostitutes. Okay, if we want to talk about things from a Christian perspective, let's talk about one of the most incredible conversion experiences in church history, Saint Mary of Egypt. She's always venerated during Lent season. Every Lent season, there is a lot of time devoted to Saint Mary of Egypt. Why? Because she has probably the most incredible conversion experience in the church as a saint. She was a prostitute for like her entire life from a very young age. And if anybody was degenerate, nobody was more degenerate than St. Mary of Egypt, to the point where she encountered a church. She tried to enter the entrance and something physically blocked her from going in. She could not go inside the church. And I believe in that moment, she prayed to the Theotokos, Mother Mary. She asked for intercession. She asked for help, and she was permitted entrance into the church. And when she devoted her life to Christ, do you know what she did? She went to the desert for 40 years. And she was in prayer, she was in repentance, and a priest found her and gave her communion, gave her Eucharist just before she passed away. And so she did not immediately go on this big media tour and in public and put on a pedestal and started preaching the gospel to everybody as soon as she converted. So I think that there's some nuance here. Obviously, we're not going to turn anybody away. But I think that the right has a very strange habit of like globbing on to these people who come out right away with conversion stories without giving them a little bit of time to grow, a little bit of time to cook. You know, give their conversion some time to cook. Even when you're converting to Orthodoxy, it takes, the priest tells you, it's like, it should take about a year for that full conversion from when you inquire to when you're chrismated into the church, because they want you to fully understand what you're stepping into. They want you to fully understand the theology. They want you to understand the liturgical calendar as much as you can. They want you to attend the services throughout the whole liturgical calendar. And then even after you're first chrismated, you see a lot of, especially because ortho bros are becoming more prolific online, there's a lot of talk from priests who advise early converts to, step back and learn a little bit for the first few years at least. You don't need to be a mouthpiece for orthodoxy. You don't need to go out and preach at people. Be humble, especially in the beginning. And I think that this is a very particularly Western Protestant Christian thing. It's because the conversion experience for Protestants is purely an experiential one. There is no process. There's no structure, there's no ritual, there are no sacraments. So when somebody says immediately, oh, I had this experience, there's no way you can measure that. There's no way you can know it's true, because it's all experiential, it's all subjective. And so this definitely applies to the Nala situation. I'm not saying that her conversion wasn't real, But I am saying that you have to kind of look at what the conservative Christians are doing, the way they globbed onto her and made her this big representative for conservative Christianity, where a lot of us were like, okay, well, give her a little bit of time maybe before we make her a mouthpiece. And then because, again, culture is downstream from religion, politics is downstream from culture, because the Western Protestant theology is so influential on American culture, then you see another sort of conversion experience on the secular end by Amber Rose. And she comes out and says, I'm MAGA now, and that's awesome. And I think we should support her transition from the left to the right. But again, why is the right so eager to suddenly give her a massive platform at the RNC and just give her a big megaphone like she's going to be a mouthpiece for the Republican Party? So those are my thoughts on it. By no means do I think that we should be mean to Amber or reject her. I think that we should encourage her. I hope this is the first step for her to turn her life around. I would love to see her, especially as a mom. Don't do corn anymore, Amber. You don't need to do that. You're better than that. Your soul does not need that. And I think we should say that to her out of love. So yeah, I do think it's a little bit weird that she went on stage at the RNC and then the next day ran a massive sale on her OnlyFans. And I think it's okay. Look, guys, it's okay to not want a corn star on stage at the RNC. It's okay to say that. And you can say that while still loving her and while still accepting her as a conservative MAGA person. Yeah, wear the hat online and tell your followers about what you think of Trump and why you support Trump. I think that's great. You can go on someone's podcast, be interviewed, but it becomes a different thing where the context is the main stage of the RNC. So this is no hatred towards Amber. It's all love. Kind of like what she said, it's all love. I have love for her, and I have enough love for her that I genuinely pray for her and women like her because I want them to completely turn their life around. And the good news is I hope that this is the first step in her true conversion, not only secular conversion to MAGA, but her religious conversion as well to Christianity. That's enough about the RNC. I rarely talk about politics, but I do think that it's important because it's indicative of where our culture's at. And if we want to raise our children successfully, we have to have an accurate sense of what's happening in our culture. And the RNC is giving us a really good window. It's giving us the perfect view of what's happening culturally. And sometimes it just makes me feel a little bit crazy. Makes me feel a little bit crazy because you look around and they're praying Sikh prayers on stage and we're supposed to act like that's normal and inclusive. And okay, that's that. Before we move on to the next topic, here's a word from our sponsor. Did you know that most diaper companies donate money to abortion funds and support abortion campaigns? That's why I'm so proud to partner with Every Life Diapers. This pro-life company is openly supportive of mothers, children, families, and the right to life. And they have a wonderful product. Both of my kids use these diapers. Not only are they easy to use and they're comfortable, but they're leak-free, so you don't have to worry about those messes in the middle of the night. I have never had a blowout mess since using Every Life Diaper with my newborn baby, which is very, very rare. I love the product, and I also, of course, love supporting Every Life in their mission. It is so rare today to find a company that is openly pro-life and openly supportive of mothers and families. So that's why I'm so proud to be supporting Every Life, and you can support them too while also getting a fantastic product. Use my code 10GINA for 10% off of your first order with Every Life. And even if you're not a mom and if you don't have kids that are in diapers, it makes a great gift. So if you know a mom who's about to have her first child, or you know families that have multiple kids who are in diapers, this makes a fantastic gift. So use my code 10GINA at checkout and support this amazing company that has an amazing product. Let's talk about how life changes after marriage. I like this topic because when we think about weddings and people getting married and finding the love of your life, the focus is really on how to find the right person and the wedding. And there's really not much talk these days about how life changes, especially in the early years of your marriage. And I think it's good to talk about because there are a lot of young people out there who are dating for marriage. They do want to get married. They have a desire to find a husband or a wife. And most of my listeners here are female. So I'm going to speak more to the woman side of it, to the wife side of it. And I think it's good to be realistic with young women about how your life changes after marriage because it helps prepare you to be a good wife and it helps prepare you to have a successful marriage that's going to last past the first few years. I wish people told me more in my 20s what life was really like after marriage because there's so much content and information about the wedding, right? Most of what we see online about marriage, especially targeted towards young people, is the wedding. And the wedding's great. Yeah, have the wedding of your dreams. That's fine. But your wedding is one day. Your marriage is supposed to be forever. And as you guys know, I've talked about this before. I love talking about marriage, particularly because I have a failed marriage. I was divorced in my 20s. I got married too soon. I did not take marriage seriously enough. And we were divorced within, I think it was just a year, a little over a year. So I want to help women not make the same mistakes, because remember, the cry and the call from the right now is get married as young as possible and have as many kids as you can. Actually, the call is get married and have more kids than you can afford. And they want you to get married as young as possible. And that's what conservatives are telling you. It's good to get married. And if you find the right person when you're young, it's good to get married when you're young. But it's much more important who you marry and how you approach marriage than it is how old you are when you get married. And I think that's a much more important message than this sort of rallying cry of get married as young as possible and start having as many babies as you can. So the first way your life changes after marriage, and I would think it's an obvious one, but I don't really think it is anymore. It's not just about you anymore. Marriage is a very selfless thing. It's a selfless process that takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of practice, because remember, we are all born selfish. That's why this obsession with self-care in recent years online, especially from like the women's digital magazines and all these influencers, you talk about the importance of loving yourself, self-growth, self-care. Honey, you don't need any help to love yourself any more than you already do, because we are all born incredibly selfish. Oh, but I don't really give myself enough time. I think I need to really focus on myself more. Yeah, take care of yourself like a normal adult would. Take care of your health like you should. But this encouragement to constantly love yourself and love everything about you, it's just, you don't need to be taught to love yourself. And I think that's why so many women struggle with marriage, because they're not properly prepared of how much it takes to be selfless. And as I've said many times before in previous episodes, marriage is modeled off of Christ's relationship with the church. Christ laid down his life for the church, his bridegroom. Husbands are called to do the same for their wife. That's a very selfless act. That's the very first command of marriage, is the husband lay down his life for his wife the same way Christ did for his church. Pretty big command, men, right? And then in turn, the wife submits to her husband. That's also a selfless act. So both parties are required to be selfless. So when you get married, you have to understand that it's not just about you anymore, and that you are going to have to find a way to still take care of yourself and prioritize your health and your general well-being, while also putting your husband first. Your husband should be putting you first as well. But this is not really for men. You can go to other men on how to put your wife first. But women, I think it's especially hard because we're constantly inundated with messaging and TV shows, movies, influencers, celebrities, ads, everything. They tell us to put ourselves first and foremost, and that's it. And now you see a lot of people getting online talking about their divorce. I just wasn't growing anymore in that marriage. I just outgrew him. He wasn't meeting my needs anymore. And the best decision I ever made was just to focus on me. And all of these divorce stories come out because they are treating their marriage as if it is a self-growth experiment, as if your marriage is a way to discover yourself more and to grow in yourself more and to just thrive in your own skin more, right? All of this sort of therapy talk. It's all about self-growth, honey, and self-love. That's not really what marriage is supposed to be about. And I think that the marriages that last a long time and are successful, not just the marriages that last a long time and are miserable, but the successful, happy, loving ones, both people understand that it is a selfless endeavor. So when you get married, ladies, just know that it's not really all about you anymore. And you'll actually find relief in not focusing on yourself 24/7. Yourself is such a bottomless pit. And the more that you dote on yourself and are obsessed with yourself, you're just going to be more and more unhappy. So it's actually a nice relief to focus on your husband for a change, and hopefully eventually your kids, because let's face it, most marriages end up with children. You're supposed to, that's sort of one of the points of marriage. And secondly, your communication skills, they either significantly improve or they're shattered by marriage. And this is something that a lot of young people need to understand. Marriage can either make or break your communication skills. So life changes after you get married because you have this person that you're sharing essentially everything with, even down to like the environment. If you lived by yourself for however long before marriage, suddenly you're living with another person. You have to get used to everything. You're sharing the home, you're sharing space. And there are a lot of things that you have to negotiate and sort of understand about each other. You have to learn how to communicate successfully. So after you get married, it's a constant dance. It's a constant conversation with your husband or your wife. So you have to learn how to successfully communicate. And so you have to learn what your edges are. What are the types of communication that you're strong at? What are the types of communication that you need some work in? Are you a fight or flight person? What are some things that are, for lack of a better word, triggering for you that are going to make you fly off the handle that you need to avoid or that you need to maybe step away from whenever you encounter them? And then you'll learn more about your husband or your wife too. What makes them tick? How do they communicate in a healthy way? And what are their unhealthy habits? And this communication process, it's closely tied to the selflessness, because there are many times in your marriage where somebody has to give, somebody has to be the quote bigger person, somebody has to fold first. And as much as you can, you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, where can I concede? How can I give up a little bit of ground here? And if you both approach marriage that way, it's going to be a lot easier and it'll be more fruitful. But communication is such a big thing to learn in marriage. And unfortunately, a lot of people just go into marriage without really understanding communication. And I would say this is actually one of the good things about millennials. And I know that boomers and Gen X like to make fun of us for going to therapy and learning about our childhood traumas. I know like they like to make fun of us. And I will say, of course, millennials and Gen Z, they overuse talk therapy and they use it almost as if it's like a god of their own. But I think it's actually a good thing for people to understand their childhood more. I think it's a good thing for people to understand what their communicative edges are. What are you good at? What triggers you? I think that's good. And I think it actually helps you and your husband move forward, because I'll say this, like I've been to talk therapy and it really helped me understand my tendencies in communication. It really helped me understand that when it comes to fight or flight, I am 100% fight all the time. I will chase you down to have a fight. I will chase you down to finish the argument. I'll chase you down in the heat of the moment to finish it right here, right now. We are going. Let's go. Let's duel. That's me. And when you have these habits that stem from whatever experiences you had in your childhood, sometimes you're blind and you're numb to it because it's just you. It's hard to accurately see yourself sometimes. So I'm not ashamed to admit that the talk therapy I've done in the past, it has to be the right therapist. The successful talk therapy I had in the past was with a specifically Christian counselor as well. So it's from a Christian perspective, but it really helped me understand my own communication. And it also helped me understand my husband's. Because in the beginning, my husband and I are, when it's fight or flight, we're totally different. He's very much like flight. He's like, I need my space. Just don't for a second. Just don't. And the more that I used to badger him and chase him, he would get more and more mad and retreat more and more. And it was just the worst combination. But sometimes you don't really see that when you're first married to somebody and you're figuring out the communication landscape. You don't really see that at first. So it's important to understand what your edges are and what your husband's edges are. And there's nothing wrong with having that sort of self-inquiry into yourself and your habits. Another way that life changes after marriage is your families merge. This is not talked about enough. And this is why I always say marriage is a public matter. People are uncomfortable with that, but it's always been a public matter. Marriage is so much more than just you and your husband. It really is about the merging of families. In the past, it was really about the merging of like economic units, and that was one of the main reasons people got married. And today, it really is about families merging. And my mom, she's Korean, and she always tells me that Koreans believe that a wife can either make or break her husband's family. She either brings a husband's family together or she breaks them apart. And there's really not any in between. And I personally, you can disagree with me on this, I think that it's a wife's duty to help unite her family with his. Let me rephrase that. It is a woman's duty as a wife to help unite her family, her husband with his family. If we can get it out of my mouth here. You get what I'm saying? To unite her husband with his family. So as a wife, you should be thinking, how can I support my husband to love his family and to have a good relationship with his family? You don't want to be a wedge between your husband and his family. You don't want to be a wedge between him and his mom. And you don't want to be a wedge between your family and him. I highly discourage you, wives, to run to your mom every single time your husband pisses you off and complain about your husband to your mom all the time, because that is going to create a disconnect and a rift between your mother and her son-in-law. You should not be running to your respective families constantly whenever you have fights with each other. I don't think it's healthy, because your families should be merged together, and each of your families are going to see the other spouse, their in-law, as whatever it is you talk about when you're mad. I don't think it's healthy to do that. I think there are better ways to vent and to have conversations with mentors or a spiritual father whenever you're struggling with your husband or your wife, whatever. I highly discourage you to constantly go to your mom or another family member and complain about, or your sister, and complain about your husband all the time. Because again, it does create this sort of disconnect, and it makes your family see your husband in a certain way that's not really fair. So when you get married, it really is about families merging. It's about families coming together. And that is what creates such a fruitful marriage, because when you have kids, your kids, grandparents on your side and grandparents on dad's side, they're both family to your kids no matter what. They're both blood. So for you, you have your blood family and your husband's family, which is not blood, but your children, that's their blood family on both sides. So you want to make sure that both sides of your child's family has a good relationship with them, and you need a good relationship with each other to have that. And so I would really encourage young people to approach marriage, young women, as a wife, approach your marriage as a way to bring families together. And women, we are the social creatures. We are the ones that are more equipped with personable endeavors. So yeah, it's really, God equipped us, I believe, as women and as wives to bring families together. So don't tear your families apart. It's very easy to get complacent when you're in a marriage, and I don't think enough people talk about this. That's why they talk about, you know how there's like the freshman 15, you go to college and gain 15 pounds. There's like the 15 pounds that husbands and wives gain when they first get married. It's because you get kind of complacent, and the wedding and the first day of marriage, it kind of seems like the destination, when in reality, your marriage, when you get married, that's the beginning of the journey. And that's what starts the life that you have together. So you can't get complacent in a marriage. You have to make sure that you are both taking care of yourselves, you're taking care of each other. Don't ever let yourselves become roommates, especially when you have kids. And that's a really hard one. It's one that we're struggling with right now, especially with a newborn and a toddler. It's so hard. It feels like everything is about the kids. You have to find little pockets of time, little ways, even if it's for 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes every other day, to look at your husband as your husband and not just a roommate who is helping you take care of the kids, because it's so easy to get complacent after you're married, because we've kind of been subtly programmed to believe that the wedding is the destination. So when you're married, okay, that's it. Good job. But it's really the beginning. It's really the start. So that there's a few more things that I could say, but my son is waking up. I can see him kind of waking up. I got to go feed him. So I don't know if this episode was that long today. I think we went the normal time. Let me know what else you want me to talk about in the next couple of episodes. Always open to suggestions. Don't forget to please support the show. Grab some amazing products from the sponsors. Click the links in the descriptions and like the video, share the video, subscribe to my channel. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.